Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of View on Fire. My name is David Bixenmeister and today we're going to take a look at the Firebase Authentication SDK. We're going to set up an email password authentication including sign up, login, logout and password reset. Before we can start implementing Firebase Authentication, we need to activate it first in our Firebase console. To do that, we need to go to the Firebase web interface, select our project, in this case our development project. We go to the tab Authentication, and we need to set up a sign-in method. We can see we have different sign-in methods like email password, phone, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and some others. For now, we just do a simple email and password authentication, and we just need to click Enable here and save it. Down here we can see a list of authorized domains which can use the Firebase authentication, and if we want to we can also add our own domain, but we're not going to do that right now. And down here we also have another setting for allowing multiple accounts for one email address, but we're just going to leave the default here. If we go up again, we can also see the Templates tab, which consists of all the emails which are going to be sent out for email and password authentication, like email address verification, password reset email, and stuff like that. You can also configure your own SMTP settings if you have an own domain, but we're not going to do that here right now. So let's just dive into the coding. First, we're going to open up our Firebase app.js because we want to create a sign-up method for signing up users through the Firebase SDK. To do that, we need to import the Firebase Auth package, and we're also going to import the store, which we're going to need later on. We can also remove the console logging for now. And we're just going to create a method which is called signup, and it takes two parameters, an email and a password, and it's an async function. All authentication methods are part of the Firebase authentication package. And the first thing we're going to do is call the function to create a user with the email and password combination. And we're also going to wrap that into a try catch block. Then after the user is created, we're gonna retrieve the user through the current user of the authentication package, and we're gonna store it in our vuejs store. Then we simply can just return true. In case there is any error with the Firebase Authentication SDK, for example, a user signs up with an email which has already been used, then an error will be thrown, or an exception will be thrown, and that's going to be catched in the catch block, and we're just going to return the error itself here. And one more thing in the end here, we need to fix the export, so that should actually be export default Firebase app. So we are storing the user in vuejs with this set user commit function, but that doesn't exist right now, so we actually need to create it. So we just open our store.js file, which is the vuejs store, and we're gonna add a state for the user, and by default it will just be null. And then we need to add a mutation, which is called setUser, exactly the function we're using in the Firebase app.js, and it has two parameters, a state and a payload. And we're just going to put state.user to the payload. So if we call the commit function, the user will be the payload and it's going to be applied to the state.user. Now we need to create our signup view. So we're going to create a new file in views, which we're going to call signup.view. And we're just going to add a template and a script tag to that. We need to import the Firebase app here, and then we need to create our view functionality. So the name of this view will be signup. We need the data function because we need some data for the view, and we're gonna need an email, which we're gonna set to null in the beginning. We need a password, and we're also gonna define an error message. Next, we're gonna create a signup method. So therefore we need the methods object, and we're just going to add a function, an async function called signup. And in this function, we're just going to call the Firebase app.signup function, we just created earlier in the Firebase app.js. And we're going to pass the email and the password to this function. From that function, we're just going to take the result. And if the result has a key called message, then we know we have an error message. So we're just going to assign the result as message to the error message in case an error happened. Otherwise, we're just going to log that a user has signed up right now. Next up, we're going to edit our HTML template. And we're going to use Bootstrap for that. So first we're going to just add a container, a row, and a column. We're also going to add some responsive functionality for small, medium, and large devices so that it looks a little bit nicer. And then we need to create a form. So on the form on submit, we're gonna call the signup function. So whenever a button or the submit button in the form is pressed, this signup function is triggered. Then we need a couple of form groups. First form group we need for the email address. So the form group consists of a label and an input field, which is type email. And we're also going to add a placeholder and assign it to the email data model. And it should be required as well. Then we're just going to copy the whole form group because we need to do the same for the password. So just copy it and paste it and exchange the label to password. We change the model to password. The type should be password as well. And we're also going to change the placeholder. Then we're going to add one more form group, which should show the error message in case there is an error with the Firebase authentication. So this is only shown if the error message has a value. We're going to add the class textDanger, so there's a nice red color in case this message is shown. And last, we're going to add the submit button, which is just a Bootstrap button with the type submit, and we're going to choose the variant primary. Now we also want to create a route for this signup view, so we're going to head over to our router.js file. We need to import the signup view from views signup, and we're going to add one more route by adding one more object to the routes array with the path signup, the name signup, and the component should be signup as well. Now we want to link this new signup view in our navigation bar. So we just copy the navbar nav, and we're gonna exchange the home and about link to just the signup link. And we're gonna add the class ml-author, because then we have it on the right side rather than on the left side. To make the view a little more beautiful, we're gonna add the fluid option to our container, and we're gonna also add the class p-4. So we're gonna add a padding to the whole container. We're also gonna remove the text alignment from the CSS and the color. And in the signup, we also gonna add the class margin top 4 to our container. So as the next thing, we want to have a view where the user is going to be redirected after the sign up. So some kind of a user dashboard. So we're going to create a new file in the views directory, which is called dashboard.view. And we're just going to add a very simple HTML template with just an h1 tag, which says hello and then the user's email address. We are also going to add the script tag. We give it the name dashboard, and we also add a computed property user. So we get the user's email address from our vuejs store. Then again, we go to our router.js file to import the dashboard and to create the dashboard route. So we just copy the signup route object and exchange signup to dashboard. So one thing we want to do here is we want to restrict the access to dashboard to authenticated users only. To change that, instead of exporting the new router, we just assign the router to a variable or a constant called router. And we're going to export this constant in the end with export default router. To restrict the access for certain routes, we're going to use the built-in router before each function. Takes 3 parameters, 2 from and next, and it's going to call before each route attempt. So this is exactly where we're going to check if the user is allowed to attempt or to access the route or not. To check if it's an authentication protected route, we're going to make use of the meter option of each route object. And we're going to use the auth key for that. So if the auth key in the meta object is set and we don't have a user in our store, then we want to redirect the user to the sign up. Otherwise, the user can just continue accessing the route. To restrict access to the dashboard route, we just add the meta object and we set auth to true. So now the dashboard route is protected and only registered users can access this route. Another thing we want to do is after the user signed up and is redirected to the dashboard, we want to show the user's email address in the navbar. And since we're now adding some more functionality to the navbar, we're just gonna make our own component rather than just adding it in the app.vue file. So let's just create a new file in the components directory called navbar.vue. And we're just gonna copy the existing navbar from our app.vue to our navbar.vue component. In the script section, we just give it the name navbar, and we're also going to add the computed property user, which we're going to retrieve from our vuejs store. In the HTML template, then we're going to decide what we're going to show based on the user's value. So if we don't have a user defined, we want to show the sign up button. And otherwise, if a user is defined, we just want to show the user's email address instead of the sign up link. We're also going to change that to a simple text item and not a navigation link. So it's a nav text rather than a nav item. Now we also want to use the navbar in our app.vue file. So we need to add the script tag and we're going to import the navbar component from /components/navbar and we add it to the components we want to use. In the HTML template, we then just need to add the navbar component, which is just nav -bar. So as you can see here, that components are always in camel case, whereas the HTML tags of these components are always in kebab case. So now we have a basic sign-up functionality, but we also want to add functionality like login, logout, or resetting the password. So we're going to head back to our Firebase app.js and we're just going to copy the sign-up method and rename it to sign-in. The function also takes an email and a password as parameters. And we're going to change the Firebase method from create user with email and password to sign in with email and password. Then we also going to create a sign out function. So we just paste the sign up function again. And we don't need any parameters here. And we're going to change the method to sign out. We also want to make sure to remove the user from our vuejs store, which we're just doing by setting the user to null. And last but not least, we're going to add the reset password function. It takes an email as parameter, and the Firebase authentication function for that is send password reset email, where we pass the email. We don't need to set the user in our store here, and we're just going to return true on success. Now we're also going to add the views. So we're going to add one more file in the views directory, which is called login.vue. And we're just simply copying all the content from the signup.view to the login.view and slightly adapt it. So instead of the sign up method of Firebase app, we're going to use the sign in method. We're going to add another row to our HTML template where we just add the link to reset the password. We're going to change the view's name to login, the method's name to login, and we're also going to call the login method on the form submission. Then we're going to add another view for resetting the password. So we just call this view reset password.view. And again, we just copy all the content from the login.view and paste it to the reset password.view and make some minor adjustments for that. First of all, we don't need the password field anymore. We just need the email field. We're going to rename the view to reset password. We can remove the password data field. We're going to rename the method to reset. And we're also going to call the reset password function from our Firebase app. We can remove the password parameter. And here, instead of redirecting, we just want to show a success message. So we're just going to use a simple variable for that to see if it's a success. Let's just do a Boolean, which we're going to set to true. And we also need to add this variable to our data and define it false by default. So now we're going to add this success message just right beneath under the error message. Change the condition to error message, from error message to success. We change the class to text success, so we get a nice green text, and we're going to add the success message to it. And we're also going to change the submit function to reset, so the right method is called on form submission. So next we're gonna go to our router.js file again to add all the new routes or views we just created to our router. So we're gonna import the login and the reset password from our views, and we're gonna add it to our routes. Then we also want to add the login link to our navigation, obviously. So we just open the navbar component again, and just next to the sign up, we're gonna add a login item. And to add the logout functionality, we do a nice little drop down beneath the user's email if the user is logged in. So we're just gonna change the nav text from our logged in users to a nav dropdown and add a dropdown item called logout. And if the user clicks that, the function logout should be called. So we're going to add that in our methods in the script tag. And this function simply calls the Firebase app sign out function we created earlier. And after signing out the user, we want to redirect the user to the home page again. This should be pretty much it for the coding part. So let's just spin up our local development server and check out our new sign up and login process. Our site now looks a little bit different because we removed a little bit of the CSS earlier. On the top right corner, we can already see our login and sign up buttons. And we can see the view of both is pretty much the same. So we're gonna now first test the sign up. So we just click on the sign up button. We're gonna enter an email address and a password and click the submit button. You can see we're instantly redirected to the dashboard, which can only be accessed by logged in users. We can log out again and test the login with the same email and password combination. And again, we're redirected to the user restricted dashboard. If we log out again, we can also test the reset password functionality. We just enter the password we used for the sign up. And we can see the success message, which means we should successfully receive an email from Firebase Authentication to reset our password for this email address. We also can check out what happens if we try to sign up with the same email address again. So we just click on sign up, enter the same email address again and the random password. And we can see the error message that we are not allowed to sign up with the same email address again. There's one more minor issue I want to fix. So if we go to the reset password view, we still have the reset password link here, which doesn't make any sense. We just forgot to remove it when we copied the login HTML template to the reset password template. So we're going to do that now. So we just open the code editor again, open the reset password view and just remove this bootstrap row where we have the reset password link in it. Another major flaw we have in our Vue app is that when the Vue app is loaded, the Firebase Authentication SDK needs to do a request to check if a user is authenticated at the moment. The problem we have right now is that when the Vue app is loaded, we are not waiting for that authentication request from the Firebase SDK, which means when we load the Vue app, no user is authenticated ever. You can simply see that if you log into our Vue app, and you're going to be redirected to the dashboard. If you try to open the dashboard in a new tab, then you're not logged in because the Vue app is not waiting for the authentication request, which lets it think that you're logged out and redirects you to the sign up page again. To fix that, we need to postpone the moment the Vue app is loaded. So we just go to our main.js file. And first we need to import the Firebase app here and the Firebase Authentication SDK. Then we're just going to declare an app variable and a function called init. And in this function, we're going to check if the variable app is defined. And if not, we're going to initiate the Vue application. Then we're going to use the built-in Firebase Auth state changed method of the Firebase Authentication SDK. And this method is fired every time when the authentication state of the user changes, which is also in the beginning when the first request of the Firebase Authentication SDK is done to retrieve the current user. And this is also the point where we first of all store the user to our vuex store. And second of all, we're going to initialize our Vue application. So now before the Vue application is initialized, we are waiting for the Firebase authentication request to be finished. And we can see if we reload our page, we are now instantly logged in. So that's it for this video. If you want to learn more about other Firebase authentication methods like Facebook login, Google login, Twitter login or others, please just write into the comments and I'm happy to make another video about that. Other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. Please make sure to subscribe. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video and stay tuned and see you soon on this channel. Bye.